Wow, so just a few days away from the start of NFL free agency, things are really starting to get crazy for the Philadelphia Eagles, as we just got an update saying that this star free agent wants to come to Philly, and it seems like the Birds are interested in the move too, but they also are reportedly interested in bringing back DeAndre Swift, so which move is more likely to happen? Meanwhile, a bunch of crazy moves have been happening around the NFL the past few days, and it seems like the Eagles could be one of the teams that benefit the most, as not only has one of their top trade targets from this offseason just been cut, but a new report has come out making it clear that 3 of the Eagles' biggest positions of need in free agency are expected to be undervalued, and with the Eagles having a ton of money to work with, this is a golden opportunity for them to find long-term solutions at these positions. I mean, man, things are really heating up for the Eagles just ahead of the start of free agency, and we're going to talk about all the latest news in this video today, so we won't waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Alright, so just ahead of free agency, the Eagles are reportedly set to bring another one of their free agents back to the roster, as just a few days after it was reported that the Birds would be bringing back Brandon Graham for one final year, it was also just reported by Jake Rabati on Twitter that the Eagles will also be bringing back their punter Braden Mann. As Rabati said, quote, "The Eagles and punter Braden Mann's agency have been in active negotiations since the NFL Scouting Combine, sources tell the Liberty Line. It's unsure at the moment whether a deal is expected to get done before March 11th, but I'd be very shocked if the two sides don't agree to a new deal at some point." So that's definitely good news because Braden Mann was pretty great last season in his first year with the Birds, so it'll be good to get him back. And also, huge shout out to Jake Rabati on Twitter. He's been doing a phenomenal job reporting on and covering the Birds this entire offseason, so make sure you go give him a follow on Twitter. But now, moving on to some big news around the NFL, there have been a lot of really high level and big name players getting released recently, and it's been mostly safeties. A couple days ago, the Seahawks released both Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, who are both 3-time Pro Bowlers, in a move to clear out a lot of salary cap space. And then the Bills did a similar thing yesterday when they cut safety Jordan Poyer and also cornerback Tre'Davious White, also to save salary cap space. And then this morning, the Denver Broncos followed in these teams' footsteps as they cut all-pro safety Justin Simmons, who had 1 year left on his deal, and this move was an effort to, you guessed it, save salary cap space. So with all these really high level safeties and players getting released, it's definitely raised some eyebrows. And with this recent release of Simmons specifically, it caused the also recently released Quandre Diggs to take to Twitter and say, quote, "This blank crazy, no loyalty for anything or anybody in this league. Dude who's been all pro and Pro Bowler consistently and a staple of Denver, what's really going on with this exodus on safeties?" And that tweet then prompted Eagles cornerback Darius Slay to also come out and say, quote, "It's crazy right now. In my 11 years of playing, I never saw this many great players get released." And that's definitely a true statement by Slay. I mean, I personally can't remember another offseason quite like this where there were this many big name players just simply getting cut. But it is what it is, honestly. I mean, these teams gotta save money somehow, and right now in the NFL, it's other positions that are taking up a lot of the salary cap space, so these teams have all found themselves in difficult situations to where they have to make these decisions to let go of some really good players at safety, and the great thing about that is that could be really beneficial for the Eagles because, one, they're in desperate need of a safety right now, and these cuts only add to the market, and the other good news is that the Eagles might not have to splurge too bad to get a high-level player at that position, as the market value for safeties reportedly may not be so great this year, and that's also the case for a couple more positions in need for the Eagles, as the Athletic's Diana Rossini tweeted, quote, "Many GMs are approaching this free agency as the running backs, linebackers, and safety markets to be similar to the past. Lower deals than we may imagine. Depressed market for those positions, a lot of 1-year deals." So if you're the Eagles, that is absolutely perfect because those 3 positions are arguably their 3 biggest positions of need, so that makes this a golden opportunity for them to fill these positions with high-level players without having to completely break the bank. Now, as far as safety goes, there are obviously a ton of options out there on the open market now with these recent releases, and the main guy, obviously, that the Eagles have been linked to is Justin Simmons, because even before he was released, the Birds reportedly had interest in trading for him, and there was some real buzz there. Now, yesterday, I did talk about this report and said that while I really do like Justin Simmons as a player, I wasn't sure I would love the move because I didn't want to have to trade any assets for an older guy on the last year of his contract that's also being paid a high amount of money. But now sitting here today after Simmons' release, the move definitely sounds a lot more appealing to me because now that he's a free agent, you don't have to give up assets to sign him, and you can also sign him to a brand new contract that maybe is a little bit more team friendly, assuming he agrees to that. And that's on top of the fact that Simmons is just a fantastic player. I mean, he's been an All-Pro 4 times in his career, and he can do it all on the field on top of being a leader in the secondary. Plus, he played under defensive coordinator Vic Fangio for 3 years and had a ton of success. So he would slide right into this Eagles defense perfectly, and he also did love playing under Fangio. So the Eagles going after Simmons seems to make a ton of sense, and I just can't imagine that he wouldn't be interested in the move as well. Now, that being said, I still would prefer that they go after one of the younger guys at that position like I talked about yesterday and sign them for a more long-term contract. I mean, my top target would definitely be Xavier McKinney. I think he's an absolute dog, and I'd love to add him as a core piece of this defense, but one of the other guys would would be great as well, or who knows, maybe they manage to sign one of these guys and also still bring in Simmons on a cheaper contract, although I'm not quite sure the likelihood of that. But regardless, it's clear that the Eagles have their options at safety as they head into free agency, and I have a hard time thinking that they won't bring in a big name. But what do you guys think? Who should the Birds sign at safety in free agency? Now, moving on to another one of those undervalued positions that Diana Rossini talked about in her report, let's take a look at running back, because the Eagles reportedly have some significant interest in signing one of the top free agents at that position as well, and that is Saquon Barkley. Now, we did talk about this yesterday briefly. Initial reports came out a few days back saying that the Eagles were one of 6 teams interested in signing Barkley in the upcoming free agency period, and it seems like this possibility is really starting to heat up, with multiple other sources now coming out and confirming the Eagles' interest in Barkley, including Ryan Dunleavy, who said, quote, "That interest is mutual. Saquon to Eagles is a real possibility. I've had the Eagles on my list of landing spots for weeks," and that report specifically is the one out of all these other reports linking Barkley to Philly that is clearly the most important. Because when I initially heard that the Eagles had interest in Barkley, I didn't really fully believe that it was actually a real possibility, but this most recent report changes everything, because for one, it says that Saquon himself has interest in joining the Eagles, which is something I definitely didn't expect, and the report also said that this move is, quote, "a real possibility." So that, combined with the other recent reports confirming the Eagles' interest, makes me think that this could actually happen. And I want to make it clear that if it did end up happening, I definitely would be pretty happy about it. I mean, Saquon is one of the top backs in the league when he's healthy. He's just incredible. I mean, the guy has a great balance of power, speed, agility, and elusiveness out of the backfield that have made him really, really hard to stop in his time with the Giants. I mean, just watching the way this guy runs between the tackles and through the gap, and the way he can also make a big play out of nothing is truly unbelievable. Not to mention the fact that Saquon has done all this running the football behind a Giants offensive line that has never been really good during his time there. Plus, Barkley also has the ability to catch passes out of the backfield and be effective as a receiving weapon as well. So if you were to add him to an Eagles offense with all the weapons that they have and put him behind that great offensive line, even without Jason Kelce, and also get him in Kellen Moore's system, that's clearly a recipe for success, and it should terrify the league. However, there are definitely some drawbacks, and those include Barkley's extensive injury history, as well as the fact that he's probably one of the more expensive running backs out there in free agency, so I think it'd be a bit of a bigger risk to bring him in. And again, that's why I think I'd rather see the Eagles bring back DeAndre Swift, because even though Barkley is definitely the better back when healthy, Swift is coming off a career year, he's younger, even though he does have an injury history, the injuries he's had haven't been nearly as serious as the ones that Barkley has, so that's not as much of a concern, at least to me. And also, Swift would definitely be cheaper, plus I still think there's a whole different level that Swift can reach in his game if he's utilized correctly. Now, the good news is, it actually seems like Swift returning to Philly is a realistic possibility, with Jake Rabati reporting that, quote, "A source suggested to me last night that DeAndre Swift re-signing with Philadelphia on a 1-year deal is very possible, as the potential of the market not being as gracious to the position is expected. He'll test the market, but that doesn't mean he won't return. Far from guaranteed he's not back." So that's definitely interesting. I personally would prefer that they bring him back on maybe a 2 to 3 year deal, but maybe Swift doesn't want to do that, so we can try and raise his value by playing on a 1-year prove-it deal. Either way, whether it's a long-term contract or a 1-year deal, I'd love to have Swift back, but if they decide to bring Barkley on a 1-year deal or something like that, I'd also be super excited, assuming it's not for too much money, because again, Barkley behind this offensive line with these offensive weapons and Jalen Hurts, it would just be unreal, again, assuming he stays healthy. In all honesty, I'm just kind of surprised that it's even a realistic possibility that the Eagles could sign Saquon, but here we are, I guess. Now, in saying that, I personally still think it's more realistic that they bring back Swift, but what do you guys think? And now, getting to the final position that Rossini mentioned in her report, which is linebacker, the Eagles have a lot of options there as well. I've gone into depth in some of them in a previous video, so if you want to check that out after this video, you can, but just to briefly summarize, there's guys like Patrick Queen, Frankie Louvu, Azeez Al-Shaair, and Josie Jewell that could all be great options. If you're looking to spend big but also get a certified star, then Patrick Queen is the way to go. I mean, I personally would love that signing. I just think that realistically, even with the market value of linebackers apparently being low, he's probably worth a little bit more than the Eagles are willing to spend, which is why I see Azeez Al-Shaair as the perfect target, because he's an up-and-coming star that's not going to cost you nearly that much, and he'd fit right in Philly with his linebacker coach from last year in Tennessee now being with the Eagles. But that being said, what do you guys think? What linebackers would you like to see the Eagles go after in free agency? Now, just to look at one final guy the Eagles could target in free agency, based on recent reports, we move to the cornerback position, and specifically the slot cornerback position position after the Eagles went ahead and released Avonte Maddox yesterday, as even though the report said that the two sides were open to a return where they bring Maddox back on a cheaper contract, there's definitely still a chance that that doesn't happen and the Eagles have to go another direction. And if they decide to do that, they apparently could be interested in Colts free agent slot cornerback Kenny Moore, with Ed Kratz saying that Moore could be someone to keep an eye on in free agency for the Eagles, as they were interested in him around the trade deadline this past year, and he would definitely be a great addition in the slot, as he's one of the better guys in the league at that position, and he's also a guy that plays physical and isn't afraid despite his small size. This past year, he racked up 93 tackles along with 1.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 2 touchdowns. So safe to say, again, he would be a great addition. He is 28 years old, to be fair, so he's a bit on the older side, but I'd still be pretty happy if the Eagles decided to sign him. But no matter who they decide to sign at whatever position, we know that things are about to get crazy. I mean, free agency pretty much starts on Monday with the beginning of the legal tampering period, and the Eagles and Howie Roseman currently have $46 million in cap space to work with, and that's before doing any of these potential extensions that could free up even more cap space. And we know that Howie is very capable of going out and making some big time moves, even when he's not necessarily in the best situation in terms of the cap. Now he's got a ton of space, and you better believe he's going to take advantage of it. So we better buckle up, because free agency is about to be insane. And I'm going to be covering it all here on this channel, so if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you subscribe, and also really importantly, turn on notifications so you don't miss any Eagles updates or videos just like this. And also, while you're at it, make sure you drop a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you want to watch another Eagles video going over a lot more free agency updates from yesterday, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.